I'm drawing some inspiration from an ornament I made, so let's make a cute little winter scene. Something a little bit fun for December. I'm starting off with a night sky, and that's just going to be this dark purple and then a medium blue, loosely mixed together, so as you draw it across your canvas, you'll get some lighter and darker spots. The darker streaks will be the clouds, and you leave a little bit of texture in there to add to that illusion. And then the lighter streaks, obviously, the night sky. Because this is a night scene, the snow is a very light gray, so it's not going to be that snowy white look that you'd get during the day. So I'm adding 5% black to 95% white, and that will give you a nice light gray. Just draw it across the canvas, leave a little bit of texture, and then leave the paint relatively heavy because you'll want to go back later and, as you see here, shape it into position. I'm going back in and adding some stars to give it a little bit of winter magic. The forest is going to be a pine forest. You're going to experiment along with me. I normally do not paint pine trees, and you'll see why in a bit, but they really are just trees, so draw down your brown trunk. I'm using burnt umber here. Now, in our little pine forest, there's not a crowd of trees, so you can leave some space there between the trunks. For the branches, I'm using a flat, kind of medium-small brush, dipping just the tip into the paint, and then tapping lightly onto the canvas. I'm also kind of just holding the brush so that as I tap it on the canvas, it kind of bounces away, and that helps me ensure that I don't have too much paint going down. As you start running out of paint and reloading your brush, you'll start creating that overlapping texture that you'll see in a real forest. Now I'm going to add some snow in using the same flat, medium, small brush, and then again, same technique, just tapping onto over these branches. My first attempt here, you'll see, doesn't really quite work out. I put down way too much white in that first little grouping, but as you practice, you'll get better, and same with me. I cut out these houses using our quick cut. They are cut so that when I paint them, they'll actually have the right perspective, but I'm using them as a way to quickly figure out how I want this little snow village to look. I'm drawing in the streets with a really light pencil, just so I know where everything goes. The houses, though, are cut out in such a way that as I paint on the sides, you create this illusion of a roof and create that illusion of perspective. Again, this is just burnt umber on the sides. For the smaller houses, I'm just painting in the side of the house a little bit different. Otherwise, it's the same technique. And then I'm using that same very light snow color that I used for the trees and painting that onto the roofs, giving it some texture, and that will help it stand out from the canvas. Later, I decided that this was a little bit too dark, and I actually did go over them with a lighter white. Now that they're dry, I'm gluing them on with a little bit of Mod Podge. Now it's time to paint the road in. You're actually seeing a weird angle because this is my second camera. Otherwise, you get me kind of caught in flow painting, and I did not realize I was blocking your view. So here you go. Anyway, the technique is to paint so that you get a nice ridge on one side of your lines of paint, and then you just paint down the canvas. Once you have all your snowdrifts in, you come back with a little bit more paint and lightly brush in the flatter side of the snowdrift lines. And that will kind of blend everything in and make it look more cohesive and as part of the canvas. Now, I did lose the video of me painting in these roadways, but it's really just a darker gray than the rest of the snow, and then just kind of paint that in between your snowdrift lines. Painting in these windows is just dabbing on a little bit of yellow in a square shape, and you're good to go. Since this is our little winter scene, I'm painting on some lights and some ornaments. My daughter saw these as gingerbread houses, so they could be gumdrops. Doesn't really matter. Make it your own. Do your own thing. To make the hot air balloon, I'm starting with a cork, cutting that in half, and then drilling in the void area of the basket with this 3/4 inch drill bit. If you don't have something like that, don't worry. You're actually going to cut this in half to make it a flat back anyway, so you can carve out from there if you'd like. Or you can just paint the top in black. It doesn't really matter. Alright, now I have these clear plastic ornaments, and they have a nice mold mark line on the side, so I'm just following that down, cutting all the way around. Once I get to these threads, though, I had to bring out tin snips and cut that off. Here is about where I realize I screwed up, and so I have to wipe off some of that paint, which is the great thing about plastic. You can wipe off the paint really nicely. Anyway, as you paint this in, I discovered it's best to paint with really heavy coats, and that will keep everything opaque. Also, make sure you're painting across those screw threads to hide any clear as you put the cap back on. And then follow the same pattern on the cork. Again, follow the same pattern for the cork, but make sure you're painting the bottom of that cork as well. That will show up when you mount it to the painting. All right, a little bit of contact cement holds that cap back on. And then a little contact cement will hold the twine on. This is just regular kitchen twine. I didn't show cutting that metal cap in half, but the trick really is just cutting it in half. I used a regular pair of scissors, that blue pair you're seeing there, but I left enough of the metal on the top just to hold that metal loop in and that string on. When you're ready to hang the basket, just start from the bottom of the cork, glue the twine onto there, and then measure up. Originally I measured too long, and then I had to fix that later by kind of carefully pulling off the strings and then re-gluing them into place. Luckily the paint was pretty forgiving and you don't see where I had pulled them off originally. For the sides, just follow the twine along the bottom edge of both the cork and the ornament. For the back string that you kind of see there, I just glued it onto the back of both the ornament and the back of the cork, and then mounting it I just used contact cement. And then finishing up with some squiggles of light reflected on the ground from the windows. Hey, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I had a lot of fun mostly playing around with technique and some materials. Painting those trees in like that was new for me, so I think a little bit more practice and I'll get the hang of it. And then I normally would not paint on the outside of plastic. I really was inspired by this ornament and it seems to have held up. It also allowed me to add more texture to the piece, so maybe it's something to revisit in the future. But mostly my family liked it, and so that's kind of the big test, right? If you did like it, please consider subscribing. That will help me grow my channel. And also hit that thumbs up button. That will tell the algorithm that people are paying attention. If you didn't like my video, go ahead and hit that thumbs down because you're also helping me tell the algorithm people are paying attention. All right, without further ado, here's the piece.